there are moments in, going back to XXL, just the beginning and how we started the whole magazine. I haven't spoken about that a lot, but XXL just came into formation with Don Morris, who was the creative director of Slam at the time. And we had been doing Slam for maybe 4 years. And we're in Orlando shooting the 96 rookie cover with Allen Iverson, Steve Nash, Stephon Marbury, Kobe Bryant, Ray Allen, that whole 96 staff. We're in Orlando shooting. And Don is like, I have to do something besides basketball. He's not a basketball guy. He's a rock and roll music, culture, whatever. Don's on some other shit. And he's like, we have to do something or I'm gonna lose my mind. I can't keep doing this basketball thing. So Tony Don and I just was sitting at the bar trying to map out how we're gonna shoot this cover in Orlando. And in the process of doing that, we came up with a concept for a men's magazine. And we wanted to do something that spoke to black males that was rooted in hip hop. Cause we're like, it has to be the center of it has to be hip hop. Cause at the time there was, of course, GQ, but there was Arena magazine coming out of London. There was Esquire. There was even like John F. Kennedy started George magazine, and there was all this influx of magazines directed towards males. And even the non-male centered issues that were dealing with men on a whole nother level, where you had, the Black Men magazine and the Playboy magazines, where you had women in bikinis and all this, that, and the other that was objectifying women. We just wanted a magazine that spoke to black males. And we came up with the concept of XXL, but that wasn't the name at the beginning. And we're sitting at the bar, and I was like, man, we should call this shit Cojones. And Tony was like, and Tony's Italian, but we were real close, so he could throw the black joke out there. He's like, man, your people gonna call it Cojones. And I was like, yeah, we're gonna fuck it up if we do that, so let's come with another name. So JFK had George out there, we wanted to try Willie. We were going tossing around other names, and Don, after we got back to New York after the shoot, started messing around visually with what would look good. Somehow he looked at a tag, and the tag had XL on it, and he just liked the the lettering XL, and he thought of it in a red block. He said, why don't we make it XXL so that it's larger than life? And I was like, damn, that's kind of dope. And Tony's like, that's kind of dope. So he drew it up, lined it up, and we were like, okay, in red block, XXL, flush left to the side, we can deal with that. And we looked at all the other magazines that were in that space, and none of them looked like that. Just from a visual standpoint and what we could do with that. And so we walked it into the publisher's office, and basically, this really doesn't happen too often. He basically said to us, he said, you all have made me so much money with Slam, whatever y'all want to do, I'll do. And that's how XXL started. We came out and started doing the issue, and Dennis wanted me to move to New York to be the editor-in-chief of it. And I'm like, I'm not moving to New York, this didn't happen. I helped get it off the ground, and at the time, I was helping the Source Sports get the Source Sports off the ground. I was writing for Five magazine. There was a lot of stuff going on my end. I said, but if we do this magazine, I'm leaving all the other stuff behind and focusing on this. And we kind of did that. And we hired the old Source, Dennis, the publisher, hired the old Source crew to do it. And we just hit the ground and started rolling. But the whole concept of how it started, basically, I don't know if that story's been told a lot, but that was the ideology behind how we started XXL and, how it kept running. I remember when I was at XXL and I was interviewing Timbaland for a story, and off the bat, we got into this disagreement about who was nicer as an MC, Eminem or Big L. And before we get into the story, we get into an argument about who's doper, Eminem or Big L. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And this is, I think M had only been on his first album. It's just like his first album had just gotten hot, and Slim Shady and all this, that, and the other. And I think he was working on it. And Timbaland, I think, either had heard the second album or maybe was doing some engineering. I don't think he produced anything on there, but I think he maybe did some engineering work on it, something like that. But he had heard part of it, and he's like, this dude is, I'm like, you know. I'm like, and at the time, Big L was the shit. And I'm like, there's no way you could compare this dude to Big L. Big L, he's a lyricist, this is what he does. And I'm like, M is too gimmicky, man. He's not. Timbaland and I get into this argument. And the basis of his argument is basically on record sales. He's like, 60 million people can't be wrong. I'm like, yes, they can. Numbers should never dictate the credibility of art. It never should. That's not how, and we get this argument, and it fucked up our entire interview because we were at odds the whole time. You know what I'm saying? We were on 2 different pages. But I say that to say, learn to stay in your fucking lane. I'm not saying Big L is not nice. Big L is nice without words. But that motherfucker Eminem, you know what I'm saying? Yo, Tim knew what he was talking about. You know what I'm saying? He knew what he had heard, and I'm a guy who studies and has studied the culture of hip hop. You know, I put my work and grind in there. Me challenging somebody at that level who has worked with guys and understands it from a whole nother visceral level, to challenge him on who's the greatest artist in that form, not smart. I learned that. Keep in mind, as him being him, he's heard stuff by M, through M, that I had not been privy to hear. Knowing M, especially knowing Dre very rarely lets any of his artists go. There's always, all right, we're trying to construct songs. These songs have to be hits. The only MC I can really think of that Dre let go was the DOC, where he let him like, all right, man, you can just flex and do whatever you want to. Dre, to me, has always been like, nah, this gotta be this, this gotta be this, this gotta be this. He's never let any of his artists go. Tim, I'm pretty sure, had heard M go. And I hadn't at the time, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, you know, so he knew what M was capable of. I didn't.